Greetings, welcome to the Metal Book Tavern. It's that time of the year when booktubers film their best books of the year videos. I wanted to wait until January to film such video, also because there are two books that I am currently reading and I'm hoping to finish before the new year starts. But then I saw a lot of notifications and I just couldn't wait anymore, so I'm filming my best of. Here are all the best books. Oh, by the way, it's now Christmas night as I'm filming this, so everyone who is watching me, Merry Christmas to you. I counted 10 best books of the year. Book number 10. Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. I didn't expect Fight Club to become one of the best books of the year. This is my third time reading Chuck Palahniuk. The first two books I read by him were Doomed and Lullaby. Doomed was a good book, but I didn't read it again. And Lullaby I don't remember at all. Third time I read Palahniuk, it was great. This is a very surprising psychological thriller, and it's quite memorable as well. Every weekend, in basements and parking lots across the country, young men with good white-collar jobs and absent fathers take off their shoes and shirts and fight each other barehanded for as long as they have to. Then they go back to those jobs with blackened eyes and loosened teeth and the sense that they can handle anything. Fight Club is the invention of Tyler Durden, projectionist, waiter, and dark anarchic genius. And it's only the beginning of his plans for revenge on a world where cancer support groups have the corner of the human warmth. I didn't expect a lot from this book, but it managed to thrill me. It's a harsh book, and to some extent it's very extreme, and there is a lot of anger, but I loved it all the same. At the same time, I feel like if I had read this book back in 2015, I would have been more sympathetic towards the main character. Because back in the day, I was more like, oh, this guy had a tough life, so I must feel sorry for him. No, not anymore. Now, when I read about this type of characters, I'm like, these guys need to take care of themselves. It can be argued that, on theory, Fight Club was a sort of a self-care for these characters. It's very thrilling, unpredictable, and it slaps you in the face. There is a very interesting dynamic between the main character and Tyler. It seems that the main character idolizes Tyler. Then again, read the book. Book number 9 is Best Fairy Tales by Hans Christian Andersen. For those who don't know, I filmed a vlog, a 1-hour vlog where I read his fairy tales. From that vlog there were 4 fairy tales I loved the most. I loved The Tinderbox. It's a very surprising novel where the main character is basically the bad guy, but at the same time I was rooting for this guy, and the ending was pretty much satisfying to me. And I also loved The Story of a Mother. That one, the story about the mother trying to save her child, it was very, very unpredictable. The Little Magic Girl and The Ice Maiden as well. I have to make a confession, I haven't read all fairy tales, but the ones I read, well, except for probably The Dryad, I loved them all. And The Ice Maiden, it was probably the best. And I'm not saying that because of the New Blind Guardian album, but because I genuinely loved it. Simply watch my 1-hour vlog and you will get what I mean. The Ice Maiden could teach Lord Voldemort how to hunt the Chosen One boys. So the book number 7 is Stephen King, Different Seasons. Or to be exact, one particular story, and that's Summer of Corruption story, Apt Pupil. You have the story of a young teenager who found out that his neighbor was a runaway Nazi, and he started questioning him, and wow. Things went unpredictable. For me, the most thrilling aspect of the short story, A Pupil, is that Tusander and Bowden, the runaway Nazi and the young teenager respectively, they mistrusted each other. they didn't trust each other, and this led to unfortunate consequences. If you haven't read this short story, I highly recommend reading that one. The dynamic between Lysander and Bowden is the best aspect of the short story, and the mistrust between them is very thrilling. Book number 6 is The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan. This is the second book of the Wheel of Time series. I love that this is much faster and much more thrilling than the first one. The first one was a slow adventure where characters, they're trying to reach a particular point and their journey. And here is where all the main action starts. The Great Hunt, like the title suggests. Here you have a lot of intrigues from the White Tower, and towards the ending, I was absolutely horrified. This book managed to slap me in the face hard with all the Sean Chan characters, because the money, they were the most horrifying and scariest aspect of the books for me. The best part about the book was the hunt itself. Book number 5. Wheel of Time again, The Dragon Reborn. Both The Great Hunt and The Dragon Reborn are 10 out of 10 reads, but I love The Dragon Reborn even more than The Great Hunt, because all the storylines were thrilling, all of them were exciting, and they all come to their logical conclusion in the end. Matt's storyline was among the best storylines in this book, and there were also a lot of intrigues in the White Tower. And in this book, finally, spoiler alert, the dragon is reborn. This book took less time to read. The first two Wheel of Time books, they took around a month to read each. This one I read in 2 weeks. I loved it. I simply couldn't put the book down. The final chapters of the books, they were absolutely epic. Originally, when I was preparing the list of the best books of the year, this book was supposed to be in this video before both Wheel of Time books. I finished this book up recently, and when I was about to film this video, I realized that it needs to be higher. And that book is Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson, the 4th book in the Stormlight Archive series, split in 2 parts in Russian. I ranked this book higher because this book did something no other fantasy series did. The first 200 or 400 pages I read, I enjoyed, but then the story had me like, wow, I couldn't believe that this happened. I was supposed to begin reading volume 2 in December, but I loved this one so much I couldn't wait for too long, and I decided to continue reading. Rhythm of War did something no other fantasy book did. And this book proved to me how much fantasy has evolved since Lord of the Rings. There were always healer characters in fantasy books, but they were always on the sideline. They were always the secondary character, but here, healer character is the main focus. Another reason I praise Rhythm of War so much because of its handle of mental health issues. In the past, fantasy books didn't highlight mental health issues that much, but here it's addressed, and it's done so well. I'm not a huge fan of Kaladin Stormblessed, but I loved him in this one. Here he was one of the best characters. And I also love Dalinar. I was underwhelmed by Dalinar chapters in Oathbringer. His visions were the reason the books were a little bit underwhelming, but here he rocked. Speaking of that, Dalinar is in his 50s. He is trying to unite everyone. Everyone around worships him, even people on the other side of the world. Dalinar is a rock star. Yes, Dalinar was giving me major rock star vibes. I love how Brandon Sanderson took themes that are unique by fantasy standards, and he handled them so well. Now I absolutely cannot wait for the book 5. So book number 4. I read this one between March and April this year. It's The Never-Ending Story by Michael Ende. This has to be the most philosophical fantasy that I have ever read. Sure, on the surface, when you start reading this, it seems like your standard fantasy adventure. When the character is like, you have to go there to save this one, you have to do this, and blah blah blah. But when you pay attention, it's very philosophical. I especially remember the dialogue between Atreyu and Gmork. Another thing the book does so well, in my opinion, is that it handles the topic of escapism very well, and it also suggests that at the correct moment you should go back to the real world. I have a video on my channel where I say why this book is worth reading. I recommend watching that one, because in that video I discuss this book in more detail. Okay, so now we are going to the top 3 of the year, but before I do that, I do want to show you some honorable mentions in random order. Little Women. I finished reading this one recently, and this is a great read for a winter season. The Haunted Hotel by Wilkie Collins. If you are looking for a good gothic mystery, I recommend this one. The Power of Words by Simone Weil. The title sounds as if Liesl Memminger from The Book Thief wrote this essay. Here are 3 essays by Simone Weil, and she mostly discusses how words are being used in society. The Handmaid's Tale, the English version. I had read the book twice in Russian, and this year I read it for the first time in English. Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. This book made me want to travel Europe by the train. Paradise Lost by John Milton. Simply Paradise Lost. And finally, A History of Heavy Metal by Andrew Anil. If you are getting into metal and you want to know the history of the genre, this book does a great job explaining the basics of metal and each subgenre. I have a video on my channel where I discuss this book, so I recommend checking that out. The honorable mentions are over, and now we go to my top 3. So the bronze medal goes to Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. I won't stop saying this. Chronicles of Narnia is an underrated series. I couldn't put this book down. The last book, The Last Battle, I read in one day. I needed around a week or 2 to read the last 3 books. Okay, sure, I read the first 4 books in chronological order back in 2019 and were read in 2020, and when I got myself this edition, I decided not to reread the first 4 stories and decided to read the last 3, and they surprised me. I didn't expect them to be so great. No, it's a very simplistic series, but at the same time it's very exciting and it says a lot. The series manages to take you on an adventure and excite you. Narnia needs more love. The Silver Medal. Enter Night, Metallica, biography by Mick Wall. I had so many thoughts and feelings after reading this book. Or to be exact, I had them while reading each chapter, and each feeling and each thought was different. I think I should do a separate review of this book. This book does a great job telling the short biography of each Metallica member, the forming of Metallica, the atmosphere of the early 80s, and the local thrash metal scene, and then the evolution of the thrash metal genre and Metallica themselves. This biography is suitable even for those people who aren't Metallica fans. For example, like me, I am not a Metallica fan and I enjoyed this book a lot. Everyone has heard of Metallica, everyone has heard of each member of Metallica, and even if you aren't into their music, the Metallica is kind of there and you can feel it. Another book by Mick Wall that I have is When Giants Walked the Earth, the Led Zeppelin biography, but I didn't enjoy that one that much because I thought it was very dry. This one, however, was very exciting. Last year I declared 2022 the year of sci-fi, and instead it became the year of rock and metal biographies. And to be honest, I don't really want to read sci-fi that much anymore. I'd rather read rock and metal biographies because I love rock and metal so much, and there are musicians I'm interested in reading about. You guys made me feel a lot. I was mad at them, I was rooting for them, I was sad with them, and so on. Another important thing about this biography is that it explores the roots of the music. It explores the influences Metallica had. And finally, the gold goes to Beneath the Wheel by Hermann Hesse, the best book of the year. I read it in one day, and I think of this book to this day. Hermann Hesse discussed a lot of things that are relevant to this day. He explores how the constant you have to study affects children. Spoiler alert, it doesn't affect them well. One of my favorite topics in literature, both fiction and non-fiction, is the authority versus free will, and this book handles that topic quite well. For me, the best aspect of the novel is the dynamic between two friends who aren't alike. One is melancholic but rebellious, he doesn't trust authority and does everything against it, while the other is more agreeable, softer and more obedient. I absolutely love that dynamic. I think about it to this day, and I don't think I will stop thinking about it. If you are the one who is under pressure of studying, or if you are the adult with a kid who is under pressure, you should read this. Alright, so I am in the process of editing this video. I'm about to finish. I forgot to film the two books that I'm currently reading, and I don't think I will rush to finish them before the year ends, but I will show them to you anyway. So, I finally began reading Anne of Green Gables. This is one of those books I wanted to read long ago. I read approximately the half of the book, even though it doesn't seem like it's a half. I like it so far. And the second book is total opposite of Anne of Green Gables. It's a non-fiction, it's a rock star biography, and that's The Dirt by Motley Crue and Neil Strauss. I really cannot believe that I have this book. I never thought I'd buy it. It was so expensive, yet when I saw it, I saw that there was a 70% discount, so I was like, yeah, I need this book while I have the chance, so I got it. I don't listen to Motley Crue at all. Led Zeppelin and Metallica I also don't listen to that much, but at least they mean something to me. Motley Crue doesn't mean too much. I'm not into glam metal at all. But I like this biography all the same. Alright, that's all. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my video. What are your best books of the year and what are your honorable mentions? Let me know down in the comments. Once again, Merry Christmas. See you next time. Goodbye.